Hey guys, Marcus Melnick here with Firearm Mentor. Hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These little things are free to you and really help the channel. I appreciate your support. Enjoy. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Stress to Logic and Firearm Mentor, where we teach people to be ready, remain safe, stay sharp, and train for the moment that matters. And we specialize in adult education on a variety of conflict resolution topics. But I came across someone named Heather Redisch who has a class called Adulting 101, and I greatly feel that the entire world needs to take this class. But Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
I'm honored and excited.
I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
You actually did. I say it's yellowish, greenish, reddish, so you did it.
That's good. I like that. Very good. So why don't you tell everyone about yourself? What's your personal origin story, and how did you get to today, where you are today?
So I graduated from University of Wisconsin with a psych degree, and when I graduated, I was kind of in a decision of, do I go back to school to do some sort of school therapy, or do I go to New York City and be with my friends from college? And New York City was calling my name and my heart, and so I flew out there for a weekend that my parents gave me, 3 days to find a job. And I landed in a recruiting agency that I had actually never even knew recruiting was a thing, a job. And, this was like completely new territory and industry for me. And when I sat there being interviewed for a job that they could find for me, I was looking around the room and saying, this is really the kind of work I think I want to do. I want to help people find jobs. And that was really just the beginning of my career, which was by happenstance because I had 3 days to figure it out in order to move to New York. And my career really evolved from there for 25 years of doing recruiting, talent management, human resources, and I love it. And with my psych degree, I feel like I use it all the time. I want to say 3-4 years ago, I started interviewing, and through the bulk of my career, I've always interviewed entry-level grads. And about 4 or so years ago, I have friends now who have kids who are graduating college, and so they would recommend or ask if I could speak to their son or daughter and just prep them for interviews or talk to them a little bit. And of course, I would always say yes. But what I was noticing with these students who were graduating from exceptional schools, I'm talking University of Michigan, University of Wisconsin, Duke, Texas, was that they were having a really hard time with their confidence, with their story, talking about who they were. It was just, I would get off the phone and I would think to myself, you just spent all this money in your education and you can barely interview. And this is a real problem. And at the same time, I came across a book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, which is something I highly recommend for any of your listeners who have kids out there. And it's all about the phone and when to give your kid a phone. And I have 3 girls, ages 16, 14, and 10. And to be honest with you, in my mind, I've kind of already screwed up my older 2 with the phone. They have one, but my 10-year-old does not yet. And so I wanted to read the book to really understand what I could do differently. And in the first chapter, Jonathan Haidt really talks about how in 2007, when the smartphone was launched, those who were in puberty, around that, anywhere from 10 to 15 or so, that got the smartphone that we had no guardrails in place for. Those were the kids that we really sent to Mars, if you will. And we had absolutely no idea what we were doing to them, with them. It was just this very uncharted territory without any guardrails. And so I had this strange epiphany reading that chapter, that my 2007 are my college grads. They are my Gen Z just getting into the office setting. And there's so much headbutting in the workplace right now of the different generational differences in the workplace, and what is expected out of Gen Z. But not only did they, were they in puberty when the smartphone was developed, they also went through COVID during school, which was also obviously another huge factor to their development. Knowing how ill-equipped they are in terms of just some basic financial literacy. Now, those who go into the business school, they might get some more background on the basic financial literacy. But when these entry grads, young professionals are negotiating offers, they don't understand that $50,000 is not 50, it's 35, right? And that you have to take taxes out, and then eventually you're going to pay for your health insurance. And do you know what a deductible and a copay is? And do you understand how to file a tax return? Or a lot of these students had IEPs or 504s throughout their academic career, which helped them with executive functioning. Well, when you get into the workforce, the executive functioning responsibilities are on you. And you need to figure out how to be productive and stay on task without having others trying to guide you. That's not human resources job, right? And so all these little areas, such as self-advocating in the workplace, being able to take feedback, just all of these different experiences that college doesn't really equip you for. And it's mind-blowing, but it's true. And these are the important kind of unspoken rules of adulthood that they need to learn. And my generation, Gen X, I come from kind of the problem-solving generation, where I would come home, I was a latchkey kid, my dad worked, my mom was out, my mom was a teacher, and I would have to figure things out on my own without calling them, and going to my friends' houses and talking to their parents, or calling their on the landlines, and having that kind of exposure to adults at a young age. They don't need to do that now over text messaging. Kids don't really interact with the adults unless they really have to. And so that was kind of the impetus of my business idea. I looked around to see who else was doing it out there, and shockingly, there's not that many people. I was actually hoping there would be more, because it's an important area that needs to be addressed now with Gen Z and Gen Alpha that will be eventually coming through. So is that long enough of a background story?
That is perfect. And I'm going to say, get out of my head, because I have teenagers too.
Yeah.
So yeah. I want to just break down a couple things that you said and opine on a couple things regarding the age of the cell phone. I got overruled on this, but I basically told my kids, you can have a cell phone at the same age I had a cell phone. And they're like, yay! I was 23.
Right.
So,
me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Or 22 maybe. I
just graduated college. Yep.
Right.
And I got my first cell phone.
And then the air goes out of the balloon. But it's kind of funny how teenagers and adults also, but are so engrossed in their cell phones. I'm going to bring this back to a safety thing, that they are unaware of their surroundings. Totally walking in the middle of a parking lot. Yep. And this is adults. I mean, obviously you're talking about young adults, but older adults too. And I'm a frustrated driver, so I mutter to myself a lot. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is, you said these students go to college and they get out of college and they don't know how some parts of life work. And it brought me back to a memory. I went to Loyola University, Chicago, for my bachelor's and master's. And I had an exit interview after my master's program. It was a new program. I was the second student to graduate with a master's in criminal justice from Loyola. And in this conversation, they said, "Oh, what could we improve on?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you this, that the education is fantastic, but there's no help with getting a job. There's no help with applying that to a resume or to a this." I said, this was 1998 when I said this, and the answer that I got was, "We are here to educate you, not get you a job."
Right.
And I thought that stunk. And I was very deflated by it.
Well, and I feel like there was something I saw the last couple of months which really spoke to me, but I do feel like colleges should be like the entry point to college has become so competitive, and that's like a whole nother topic in itself. But it's part of the reason why it's become so competitive is because now you go into an app, you can apply to 20 schools, whereas when I was growing up, you had to be strategic. Like I had a safety school, I had a reach school, I had some schools that I knew I could get into, but like now it's like kind of spray and pray with what you can get into, which oversaturates all of their systems. And then it makes getting into college that much harder. To me, every college should have some sort of data available on what the success is of graduates landing jobs prior to graduation, right? Because if you look at a school and say, well, only 40% of the kids that went to this school were accepted for jobs prior to graduation, to me, that's not a great school. It's not taking its time to create strong partnerships with corporations across the country. That is, to me, their job is to be able to set up these kids so that they can interview and have jobs. That is, how much money are we spending on the education system? But similarly, that is what is happening in the job hunt now, is that there is LinkedIn, there's a few more apps, and you spray and you pray that your resume gets viewed. Well, with AI and all of the features in order to screen through resumes, the likelihood that you get chosen to be an applicant or a candidate for a job right now by just applying is like winning the lottery.
Right.
It's impossible because there's no strategy behind it anymore. So ultimately, you need to network and really connect. And that's other things I believe the universities should be highly elevating is their alumni network, because that is the best way for you to find a job, quite frankly.
So let me ask you a question on the whole job search thing. And I'm relatively well read on it. I used to teach at a community college, interview skills. So this is not something that's foreign. The literature says you need to network to find a hidden job. And I totally understand what that means. However, in today's economy, doesn't there have to be an opening first?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we're in agreement.
That's part of the problem, is that someone will post on, let's say, LinkedIn, and then they get, at this point, you could get 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 candidates, depending on, what the level is of the role. And then the HR puts out the role internally for a referral bonus, and you've got the internal referrals referring their people. Well, of course, those people are going to get their candidates in front of HR before they're going through the LinkedIn applicant tracking system.
I want my listeners to know that this is my dream, teaching people about safety. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for my listeners, I couldn't live my dream. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream. And I also want to continue to live my dream, and I'm excited to continue to spread the word of safety. Recently, I began a new service as a conference keynote speaker. So if anyone would like for me to speak at future events, or if anyone knows of an introduction or would like to discuss how we can work with one another, I'd love to do just that. The keynote speaking website is www.stress, the number 2, logic.com. That is STRESS, the number 2, LOGIC.com. If you're aware of any conference speaking engagements where you'd like to have me speak, I'd love an introduction. You can always share my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com. Now, back to the show.
I have some advice for the listeners.
Yeah.
If you haven't talked to someone in a long time and they contact you and they're like, hey, I'm looking for a position, what do you have? I always help people until they say, oh, by the way, my cell phone bill is due. Can you send me $300? That's a true story. I was like,
God.
what the? I can't
That
say
is
it on the radio,
crazy.
but you guys know what I'm thinking. I'm like, how can I refer someone like that to a job? I haven't seen this person in 10 years.
No.
And the second sentence is asking me for money. I'm like, what is going on? So what I'm trying to get at is be a giver. If you are a giver, and it doesn't have to be money, giving money, but if you're generous and you help people, life is not transactional, but karma has a way of finding you in a positive way as well.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
So what I was saying was that it's about giving people the opportunity also. So if somebody does reach out to you, especially these young adults right now, they need the practice, they need the connections. They are feeling so awkward even about the reach outs. Like, this is, as they would say, so cringe. It's right to do these networking reach outs. And so much of my coaching, I have, like, sometimes I have to literally sit on the phone or sit on my Zoom with my student while they do it, because they want to crawl out of their skin with a LinkedIn request or a networking request or whatever it might be. Give those people a chance, especially if they are also reaching out through your university and they're just looking for, just ways to network. So
Very good. Have you found that college students who live in an apartment during their college career are better equipped to go out in the real world as opposed to a dorm or a frat or sorority? Have you seen any patterns there?
yeah, I mean, I think that, like, the evolution of college is typically freshman dorms, sophomore and junior year, perhaps it's the house, and then by senior year you are in an apartment. I more think it's about the parents having a conversation with their young adult about how to manage the finances and what that looks like, and understanding rent versus understanding what they are paying for DoorDash. Or I think that it's when your kid just has your credit card and they just charge away and they have absolutely no idea what they're charging on a monthly basis, that it becomes a problem. I think kids need to have some sort of understanding of what these things cost, and to think to yourself, okay, do I really need to DoorDash this, or can I go walk down the street and just pick it up? Like, is it that big of a deal? Are you just being lazy, or are you, like, in the middle of something really important and so you can't go get yourself something to eat? So it's little things like that I think that it is possible to start bringing financial awareness to them by their senior year, so that they can start to figure out how to navigate it post senior year.
But Heather, my game is so important.
Your what?
My game that I'm on. I'm gaming. I'm going to order
Right,
DoorDash.
my game, exactly.
What the heck?
I'm gaming. I don't want to interrupt it. Right, exactly.
Right. And oh my God, that drives me crazy in my own family. And I was so resistant to the Uber Eats, the DoorDash stuff for like 2 years. I was like, no, I'm not. And now, of course, I fell into the laziness. So they
Which
are,
everybody does,
yes.
right? Everybody does, but it's important. I think, with a bunch of my students, like we have a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, and we create a budget
Mm-hmm.
based on what their salary is and break down like how much they can afford to spend a month on eating out,
Right.
how much they can afford to spend a month on their groceries, what are their fixed costs, so having some sort of understanding of what that looks like before you graduate, it would be amazing, but definitely after you graduate, breaking down those numbers is critical to their financial success.
From your lips to God's ears. So my son is a sophomore at Alabama. He did the dorms the first year he was in the dorms, and now he's in his own apartment. And what he does is he tallies up his expenses and he sends them to his mother and I once a month. And I will tell you, it has always been reasonable. He
Good.
works for Let Us Entertain You.
Oh, great.
And loves to cook.
Oh.
So he is like the cook among his friends. He's like, hey, you guys bring the broccoli, you bring the steaks, you bring the this, you bring the that, and he meal preps. And our expenses have been a lot less than anticipated because of course he goes out to eat and he goes to the bars. Yeah. I mean, he does that, but he doesn't. When he goes out to the bars, he doesn't give us those expenses. He's like, I work. This is entertainment. This is for me. So I'm really
well. You're doing a good job,
well,
Dad.
thank you. But I'm eating up what you're saying because it's confirming everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
And believe me, I'm not perfect. Far from it.
No one is. No one is. And I just also wish that there were. I mean, not that I don't want my job because I love what I do, but like I can't believe universities aren't teaching these classes to the kids in every major. Just because you're, a marketing major doesn't mean that you can't have a, financial literacy class so that you understand how to function post-college. I mean, there's just a lot of information and a lot of experience. And I think that universities get so focused on just what their degree is teaching them, which, by the way, that's a whole nother issue, which is you're graduating and then you're like, well, I don't know what I want to do with my marketing degree.
Right.
So
there's a direction issue.
Right. And like, shouldn't that be the job of your schools to like help you figure out that direction post college?
Right.
It's just, I don't know. It's kind of mind boggling to me.
My kids went to Stevenson High School, and whenever there was like an open house or some sort of event where the parents go, I always made the comment, where is the driver's education class for the parents?
Yeah.
So you can get where I'm going from. Sometimes we do need to be re-educated, and it's very frustrating to see some of these parents who are highly, highly educated not know how to drive. And that's just me opining and trying to be a little bit funny, but that's really a true thing.
100%. I always say there's been nothing more terrifying in my life than when my daughter merges onto the highway.
Yes.
I can't even describe, and there's like a whole conversation that goes on in my head about this is a moment of teaching, and God, there's so many parallels to this of life, and giving away the freedom and not hovering over her and freaking out and looking back to see if there's anyone merging. Like, there's so many other parallels, but it is a scary, scary feeling for sure.
So let's dive in and talk about Adulting 101. What are some other topics that you cover? We kind of touched on some of them, tax returns, budgeting. What are some other things that you discuss with your clients?
I like to go, as a starting point, I like to go over just like your career and talk about what your superpowers are versus what your passions are. I'm not really a big fan of like follow your passion. I'm more of a fan of follow your superpowers. Superpowers are what you are innately great at from basically birth. Were you the kid that, was a Lego builder all on their own? Were you the kid that loved puzzles? Were you the kid that was into imaginary play or drawing or coloring? Or how was your childhood, and how would others describe you as like something special? Were you always a talker? Were you on stage? Did you like to dance? Because I think that a lot of young adults forget what their superpowers are because they're so focused on what they're supposed to be passionate about or good at. And so thinking about what came naturally to you in school. Did math come really naturally to you? Or did science or did other subjects come more naturally to you than the person sitting next to you that really struggled through it? And identifying that, and through identifying your superpowers, then you're able to start to build your career, which will then be something you are passionate about. If you're doing something that you're innately good at, it will eventually become your passion. So similar to me, I was always interested in the human behavior. Psychology was my degree. Did I think I was going to grow up and be a recruiter or in human resources? No, but I knew I liked to connect with people. So I needed to take that core skill set and figure out what would best suit me based on that. And so we talk a lot about that. We talk about what your story is so that when people say, hey, tell me about yourself, that you have that narrative and that you're able to talk confidently, but not like off of a script per se, right? We talk about your LinkedIn profile, how to network, how to create a resume now with AI, because it's so much easier than when you and I were growing up. And what would take us weeks can take literally minutes for AI. And then I do some interviewing, coaching, the behavioral interviews, tell me a time when, all of those kind of, let's bring all of your experiences thus far to the forefront so that when you are being asked about a question about a conflict resolution or collaboration, when have you had these personal experiences that you can talk about? From there, then I kind of hit the financial literacy and talk about taxes and budgeting and what it looks like if you live in New York versus Chicago versus San Francisco. And then from there, I really drive home the 401k and why it's important to start investing in your 401k so early in life. And I go through kind of that exercise. Then we go over executive functioning, which is time management. People get really distracted very quickly now with their phones. They get quickly overwhelmed by a lot of tasks, and just ensuring that they can stay focused and know how to prioritize their tasks and how to use your calendar effectively, how to create boundaries within your workplace if you have a boss who's contacting you morning, noon, and night. And then kind of working that more into mental health and protecting your mental health. And as you now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time for this segment, but stay tuned. We will be right back and we'll be continuing the conversation about Adulting 101 with Heather Redisch. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.